Salvage Hunters isn't just about finding dusty artifacts that have been lost to time and turning them into prized possessions. It's also a story about tying the past to the present and keeping it alive for the future. It's a story of patience, passion, a keen eye for detail, and amazing skills. The star of the show stands out because he is the link between the past, present, and future, and he has all the skills and other qualities that make the show great. Unfortunately, darkness has enveloped the bright star of this. Would you believe me if I told you that Drew's story has a darker side that doesn't make it to TV? A side that's not about antiques, but about heartbreak, personal struggles, and lessons that are harder to learn than any bad deal. So grab a seat and let's peel back the layers of Drew Pritchard's life to find out the story behind the man. For years, Drew has been the face of Salvage Hunters. He is a modern-day Indiana Jones who can find gold where others see nothing. What started this man's desire to bring the dead back to life? To find out, we will start in the small town of Conwy in North Wales, where Drew grew up hearing stories about the past. While other kids played football or soccer, went to the park, or read comic books, Drew spent his time exploring old junkyards and finding fascination in things that other people had thrown away. He wasn't your typical boy. He loved tinkering with things and finding new uses for old things. He liked to ask questions, and his natural curiosity led to a lifelong love of history and craftsmanship. Now, let's go back a little ways. In the late 1980s, he got a job working for a local stained glass conservator. That's where he developed his attention to detail and learned how important craftsmanship was. For Drew, it wasn't just about fixing glass, it was about keeping stories alive. This is where Drew's story takes an interesting turn. Most people would have stayed where they were. Drew wasn't happy just restoring church windows and antique glasswork like some people do. He had bigger plans and dreams. While working in stained glass in the late 1980s, Drew met some of the most experienced antique dealers in North Wales. It was a community full of interesting people who could walk into a dusty barn and walk out with treasures that no one else saw. These seasoned pros saw something in Drew that they saw that he didn't. Not just another guy with a toolbox, he had an eye for detail, a love of history, and most importantly, a desire to learn. A local antique thief named Clive was very important to Drew's early career. Clive was famous in North Wales for his uncanny ability to turn even the most ordinary finds into sought-after pieces, and he became something of an unofficial mentor to Drew. In 1990, Clive took him to his first major antique fair in Newark, Nottinghamshire, which was a mecca for antique lovers. Drew later said that, as a turning point, he would say, "Everywhere I looked, there was something amazing to learn or discover at Newark." Drew didn't just watch, he took part. He started by buying cheap items like an old weather vane or a rustic table and selling them for a profit. Clive taught him the ropes. He taught Drew how to negotiate, how to spot real goods in a market full of fakes, and most importantly, how to see potential where others saw junk. There was another. An important connection was made with a flashy dealer named Gerald. Gerald specialized in large pieces of architectural salvage like grand fireplaces, cast iron gates, and stone ornaments from stately homes. Drew was amazed by how big Gerald's pieces were. It was through Gerald that Drew got his first big break in the architectural salvage business around 1992, when Gerald asked him to help take apart and sell parts of a Victorian greenhouse from a country state. Drew jumped right into the job, learning not only the trade but also Drew's relationships with these people helped him learn more about the antique world and opened up new opportunities. By the mid-1990s, Drew wasn't just known as an expert in stained glass, he was also known as a versatile dealer who could handle everything from small decorative pieces to huge architectural salvages. Looking back, Drew often thanks these early mentors for shaping his career, saying, "People like Clive and Gerald I wouldn't have had though." He once said in an interview that he didn't have the courage to take risks or the knowledge to spot the diamonds in the rough. Despite the help he got, Drew learned that every journey has its challenges. Stay tuned for the highs, the lows, and the unexpected turns. By the late 2000s, Drew had already made a name for himself in the world of antiques and salvaging. He was famous for finding hidden gems and making fair deals. His reputation for telling stories made him an approachable expert in the field. Around 2010, he caught the attention of a TV show. Rather than just looking for an antique dealer, the production company wanted a personality who could bring the world of salve to life for viewers. Drew had the charm, the passion, and the ability to make things interesting, perfect for TV, right? But here's the thing, Drew wasn't your typical TV star material. He wasn't polished or scripted. He was raw, unfiltered, and completely himself. This wasn't the kind of polished persona that would work on TV. Still, in 2011, the producers pitched Drew the idea of a show that would follow him as he. The idea behind the show was simple. Viewers would get a behind-the-scenes look at the world of salvaging. They would see Drew go from dusty barns to grand estates and how he turned forgotten artifacts into treasures. At first, Drew wasn't sure if he wanted to do it, but with some convincing, he decided to give it a try. That decision made him the legend that he is today. The first episode of Salvage Hunters aired on Quest in November 2011 and was a hit. Drew's personality shone through his enthusiasm for every find. Drew's dry sense of humor and an ability to see the beauty in broken things gave people a new way to look at things. Drew made the show about more than just antiques, it was also about the stories that those antiques held. One of the things that made Salvage Hunters so special was how relatable it felt. It turned out that Drew's honest and unfiltered nature worked. Viewers saw him as one of them and liked that he wasn't trying to be perfect. If a deal went bad, he showed it. If he found a piece he loved, he told them. It was easy to see how excited he was, and let's not forget his famous banter with his team, especially his driver and sidekick John T. The chemistry between them added so much charm to the show. Let's face it, Drew Pritchard's sharp eye and quick wit are what makes Salvage Hunters work, but the show wouldn't be the same without his team. They bring extra personality, humor, and camaraderie to every episode. Could you imagine Drew traveling alone without his trusted crew? Not even close. First up is John T., better known to fans as TT. Wasn't just Drew's driver, he was also his partner in crime, his sounding board, and sometimes the voice of reason when Drew got a little carried away. With his laid-back attitude and dry sense of humor, T was the perfect balance to Drew's boundless enthusiasm. For example, when Drew would get too excited about something like a rusty weather vane, T would give him that classic side eye and say, "Really, Drew, this is what's getting you excited today." But here's the truth, T had a lot of respect for Drew's vision. One of T's best qualities was his ability to read people. While Drew was focused on the antiques, T often picked up on the mood of the seller or the atmosphere of the deal. Drew was the charmer, and T was the grounding force. Then there was Gavin, the restoration expert. If Drew was the visionary, Gavin was the magician who brought that vision to life. Gavin had the amazing talent of taking something broken and smashed and turning it into a work of art. He was meticulous, patient, and deeply passionate about his work. Watching him work was like seeing an artist at work, and Drew knew it. He had full faith in Gavin's abilities. One of the most memorable times Drew brought back a broken 19th century French mirror. Drew was thrilled, but the thing looked like it had survived a hurricane. Gavin didn't even flinch. He got to work restoring it. Drew was thrilled when he saw the finished mirror. It reminded him of the magic Gavin brought to the team, turning Drew's finds into show-stopping treasures. And let's not forget Rebecca Pritchard, Drew's ex-wife and the show's resident research and valuation expert. Rebecca's role was crucial. She was the one who dug into the history of the pieces Drew brought back, and her insights gave the show more depth by giving viewers a glimpse into the stories behind the antiques. Drew was out making deals, and Rebecca was the one who confirmed whether those deals were as good as Drew hoped they'd be. What made the relationship between Drew and Rebecca so interesting was their chemistry. It helped that they were married, but when you're on TV, things change quickly. Fame isn't all glamour. While Drew did well at work, his personal life had its share of problems. Being a public figure meant being watched, and Drew wasn't exactly known for having a low-key life. His honest nature, which won him fans, sometimes caused problems in the business. Then there's the effect of fame on relationships. Drew and Rebecca had already broken up before the show, but working together in public wasn't always easy. They made it work for the show and their shared love of antiques, but it wasn't always easy. Drew himself said in interviews that balancing his work and personal life was one of the hardest things he had to do. Drew continued to juggle being a TV star, growing a business, traveling a lot, and keeping up some semblance of a personal life. It was exhausting, but Drew's love for antiques never wavered. However, by the mid-2010s, Drew was not only dealing with the pressures of his career, but he was also going through a well-documented separation from Rebecca, his wife of many years and co-star on Salvage Hunters. Breakups are hard enough without the whole world watching, so Drew and Rebecca were under a lot of stress. They had a life together, a successful business, and a popular TV show. When they broke up in 2017, it wasn't just a personal loss, it was also a professional challenge. They continued to work together, showing great professionalism and mutual respect on screen, but you can imagine how hard it was for them behind the scenes. Drew once said in an interview that keeping the balance was one of the hardest things he's ever done, and it wasn't just about the relationship. Drew had to plan being a single dad while imagine flying across the UK and Europe filming episodes, managing a workshop, and still trying to be there for your family. That kind of chaos could wear down even the most energetic person. Let's be honest, no matter how talented or driven you are, you can't do it all by yourself. Drew Pritchard's success wasn't just due to his keen eye for antiques, it was also due to the people who stood by him. That's why losing key. 1. Collaborators like John T. hit him hard, but it wasn't a big deal. Sometimes life just takes you in a different direction. Still, his departure left a gap that needed to be filled. Drew had to get used to working without the guy who'd been by his side for so many of his biggest successes, and viewers did too. Losing T was more than just a person loss, it was a professional challenge. The show had to change, and so did Drew's team. It wasn't easy to find the same chemistry with someone new, especially when fans had. But Drew kept going, showing that even though change is hard, it's also a chance to grow. Now let's talk about another challenge, the antiques community. You'd think that a show like Salvage Hunters would be praised by everyone, but it wasn't. While Drew gained a lot of fans, his success was also criticized by some in the industry. There were rumors that Drew's fame gave him an unfair advantage, and others didn't like his direct style of. Drew's path through grief wasn't easy. He's been honest about how hard it was to keep going after such a monumental loss. But he did, and he found a way to honor his father's memory by continuing to do what he loved, finding treasures and preserving history, just like Pritchard had inspired him to do in the first place. That loss changed Drew, and not just as a person. As a person, but also as a professional. It was a turning point that gave him a stronger sense of purpose, and in the end, made his story even more powerful. Despite tragedy, Drew found the strength to keep going, which is truly amazing.